And barf, the barf methods makes mistakes too. They put lots of different foods, incompatible foods together. And it's very complicated. They tend to use a lot of supplementation and oils, things that are really useless to a dog's body. And, a young dog starting out on either one of those plans might do fine for a while. And as a dog gets older, their capacity for eliminating waste decreases. So people typically find out in midlife that their dog is having, a symptom, and they think that they're already doing everything perfectly, especially if they've had 5 years of practice under their belt and reading and, communing with other baller feeders or PMR feeders or whatever, and talking and reading. And it doesn't occur to them that it's the diet that's causing it. So that's where loyalty to a plan can get you in trouble. And, when people switch to my methods of feeding, I don't ask for that kind of loyalty. If there's a symptom, you need to figure out what's wrong and tweak it and change it. And that's why there's so much range between protocols, between feeding protocols. And if you find that one's not working, it needs to be changed, because that's the first thing to look at. Diet is number one. It's the first thing to look at when things go wrong.
Yeah, I think people underestimate that. When I've done PMR and barf, and I was barf feeding my dogs before moving to rotational mono feeding, and I was paying top dollar, AFCO approved, whatever, balanced, fancy commercial raw dog food brands, and I was still having problems. My dogs had early stage kidney disease, mast cell cancer, chronic allergies, and you wouldn't think that just combining the meat with the plant materials and feeding that meal, which included much more fat than should be in there every day, would have such a huge impact. But it does. And people are amazed when they start cutting down on the amount of fat that goes in and separating out those plant food types so that they can digest easily, and not require so much energy from our dogs. Yeah.
It really comes down to one problem, and that is commercialism, because it has to be cheap. It has to make money. And that's not, we don't care about that.
Yeah.
Because it's not actually just a matter of, food combining or whatever, because I've seen people in various groups talk about they keep their dogs' fat consumption fairly low, but they do mix veggies and fruits in with the food, and their dogs are fine, So it's not just that. I really think it's mostly the commercialism.
Yeah. And probably why that is effective is because the body is not overburdened with digestion, and it has energy that it can devote to cellular regeneration and healing, because they're not bombarded with a big meal every day and digesting food constantly. And that goes back to the whole philosophy of natural hygiene. Can you talk about that and how that plays a part in the rotational mono feeding?
Well, natural hygiene really is the science of health. It's just observations that have been made for the last, couple hundred years of what works in nature, and trying to figure out what our biological requirements are and what the biological requirements are of our dogs. And when we do that, disease goes away. Disease is a result of our failure to do that. So it's all about removal of cause, not treating, and allowing the magnificent, incredibly beyond comprehensible wisdom of the body to heal itself. And that's what we're doing here. We're taking away the cause and allowing the body to heal itself. And I think there's a lot of brainwashing that goes on for the medical industry, and people come to this expecting very quick results. Sometimes they get quick results, and that's great. Sometimes it's slower, and typically it's when a dog is older that healing is slower.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it happens in cycles, like you saw with your dogs. But when you see stuff coming out the ears, stuff coming out the eyes, I mean, people ask me all the time, how much longer is this going to go on? How much longer do I have to, watch my dog have stuff coming out of her eyes or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
And nobody knows that. What I can do is I can take a look at what you're feeding and find out if it's something that you're feeding right now that
Yeah.
might be causing an abundance of waste to come out through these, superfluous avenues. But short of knowing what you're feeding now, I just have to assume that it's because the body has gotten a break from what it was being fed before, and now it's able to go deep and get all of those stored wastes out, and it's using the same channels that it did before. They're already set up. They're
Mm-hmm.
little engineering marvels of the body.
Yeah.
Skin eruptions they're called eruptions because they're like little volcanoes. They're pushing stuff out. And when you understand that, and then you have to go, well, where is all this stuff coming from?
Yeah.
It's not, it's not a germ, it's not a bacteria, it's big stuff. It's big. It's stuff it's accumulated so much in the body that it has to find an outbound route. And that's what's happening. So
Why does it work for so many things? Like people come in and learn about the rotational monofeeding in your Facebook group, Healing Diet for Dogs and Cats, and the majority have allergies, actually,
yeah.
but everybody has something different going on, and they want to know what they can do for their specific disease. So why is that not necessarily the thing to focus on?
That's a great question, because everybody thinks that there's a different thing to do for every specific disease. And that's a commercial. That's a commercial for
Mm-hmm.
products that replays in our head. Okay, so if I have acne, I need something that treats acne. Or if I
Mm-hmm.
have, colitis or whatever, I need a product that treats colitis. Well, the same thing that causes colitis causes acne. It's exactly the same thing. It's stuff coming out. If you're putting in, foods that your body can't digest, and it has to be eliminated through those primary organs of elimination. And when that happens, if those foods and those wastes are irritating, they're going to produce that consequence in the colon. And the same for acne. It's stuff finding an outbound avenue, because if it stayed put, it would wreak havoc with the vital organs. And vital organs are what's important, not the skin.
Why do you think it comes out as allergies in one dog, out the skin in one dog, inflammation in the ear in another dog, and kidney disease in another dog?
Yeah, that's a great question.